Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I'm lucky enough to fill in for Tucker this evening. Now, Tucker should be off enjoying a pre-planned vacation right now, but instead, he'll be joining us in just a few moments to discuss the disgusting display that occurred outside his house last night. You got a mob of Antifa protesters. How do you know? They spray painted it on his driveway, calling themselves Smash Racism DC. They appeared outside his house in Washington. These people banged on Tucker's door. They vandalized his driveway. They spray painted that symbol. They were chanting, "We know where you sleep at night." And they threatened to come back with pipe bombs. Isn't this great? We're not going to show you the video, but just listen to their chants.
Carlson, we are outside your home, and we want you to know we know where you sleep at night.
Mailbox.
We know where you sleep at night.
We know where you sleep at night.
Racist scumbags, leave town. Racist scumbags, leave town. Racist scumbags, leave town.
You believe this? Now, Tucker's wife was at home at the time, while Tucker will tell you himself what happened when she heard the banging on the door and where she went. Meanwhile, the D.C. Police Department says they are investigating the entire incident as, get this, a hate crime. And that's basically a first. I know myself how terrible things like this are. I've been harassed by thugs like this before. It followed me a couple of weeks ago for about a half hour with a couple of cameras, tried to incite a subway car full of people to attack me because I work at Fox. Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott and President Jay Wallace took action. They issued this statement a short time ago. It reads, quote, "The incident that took place at Tucker's home last night was reprehensible. The violent threats and intimidation tactics towards him and his wife are completely unacceptable. We as a nation have become far too intolerant of different points of views. Recent events across our country clearly highlight the need for a more civil, respectful, and inclusive national conversation. Those of us in the media and in politics bear a special obligation to all Americans to find some common ground," unquote. Seems like a statement everybody should agree with, right? But not everyone does. Get this. Vox's Matt Yglesias, I think that's how you say his name, whose Twitter profile boasts of his, quote, "flexible morals," tweeted this: "I honestly cannot empathize with Tucker Carlson's wife at all. I agree that protesting at our house was tactically unwise and shouldn't be done, but I am utterly unable to identify with her plight at any level." Tactically unwise. Still, we've been touched by the outpouring of support for Tucker Carlson from other media personalities you might remember. CNN's Brian Stelter, a regular critic of the show, tweeted this out: "Inexcusable. Whether you love or hate Tucker Carlson, we should be able to see this behavior as wrong." His colleague, Chris Cuomo, responded to that quote: "Wrong? If they did what is reported, it is criminal." Former Fox and NBC host Megyn Kelly was one of the first to defend Tucker, tweeting this out: "This has to stop. Who are we? What are we becoming? Tucker Carlson is tough and can handle a lot, but he does not deserve this. His family does not deserve this. It is stomach-churning," close quote. Another show of support came from Late Show host Stephen Colbert. Even he tweeted this out: "Fighting Tucker Carlson's ideas is an American right. Targeting his home, terrorizing his family, is an act of monstrous cowardice. Obviously, don't do this, but also take no pleasure in it happening. Feeding monsters just makes more monsters." And there are many, many more statements like this. It's an outpouring that came in today. All to respond to it and taking it all in firsthand is Tucker Carlson, who is on a previously planned vacation and joins us via the telephone. Tucker, that's the response. You're taping your show just before you go on the air. They're outside your house. What have the last 24 hours been like for you?
Well, it's actually been really nice and affirming. I mean, so for every masked lunatic in front of my house, there have been, 100 people, some of whom I don't agree with politically, calling or sending texts of support and kindness. And it's just a reminder of what a really nice country it is. And if you work in our businesses, you can lose sight of that because you see the lunatics. But, most people are not lunatics. Most people are humane and decent and kind. And it's just been a great reminder of that and really a wonderful experience. But what's it like to find out that your wife is hiding in the pantry because people are threatening her? I mean, it's upsetting. And I guess I would say this. I mean, I've characterized the Antifa people and people like them as protesters, but they're not. I mean, they weren't protesting anything. The irony is that, this is the one show that regularly invites people like that on to say what they think. And if you have a point of view that we disagree with, I'll debate you, but I still want to hear it because I think people should hear it. And so, but they weren't trying to change my mind or advocate for a position. They were threatening my family to get me to stop talking. And obviously I'm not going to because it's my job to talk, and I have the support of Fox News, and I'm grateful for that. But then you think of all the people, most people in this country who don't have that lucky combination of circumstances, and they really feel like they have to shut up, that they can't say what they think because they'll be punished. I mean, this has a chilling effect on people's ability to speak and to think freely. That's the point. It's totalitarian in its intent, and we should fight it.
So there's a couple of things going on. You have your career, you have your opinions. Are you going to change? The answer is absolutely no. And this might be, I guess, retro or sexist to say this, but as the head of your household in many respects, traditionally, don't you feel a responsibility to protect those who live with you, like your wife, like your family? What is it like? What did she do as they were banging on your door, spray painting your driveway, and shouting outside your house? And this is more than a dozen people in black outfits. Where was she?
She was in the kitchen, and let me say, if we find ourselves in a country where men aren't allowed to say they want to protect their wives, I don't want to live in that country. That's totally sick and unnatural. So of course I feel that obligation. It's my deepest obligation, and I feel it. So I got a bunch of texts from people, my neighbors, saying something terrible is going on at your house. And by the time I called, my wife had the police and my brother there. My brother, I have a very large brother who lives a couple blocks away, thank heaven, and we're close, so he was there immediately. But so she's standing in the kitchen waiting to go out to dinner, and people start pounding on the door, really hitting the door hard and screaming and threatening, and she thought it was a home invasion. I mean, the truth is, my wife, even though she's married to me, is not very political and not. I mean, we live in Washington, which is. We raised our 4 children in Washington. It's not, believe it or not, a very political environment. People don't talk about politics at dinner. There's kind of a gentleman's agreement to be nonpartisan, and so she's not engaged in this stuff. I'm not sure she knew who Antifa was. She didn't do anything wrong. Why are they screaming at her? I mean, the whole thing was completely grotesque. And the effect is to make it, impossible to, open your mail. I mean, one thing they did, I think the worst thing that they did, was they put my home address on the internet, and they put a poster right in front of my house with my home address on it, and they filmed it, they taped it, and they put the tape on the internet. So, I can't have my kids stay home alone now. I'm a normal person. I live in a normal neighborhood. I'm not a talk show host who want to get off the air. I'm a father. I don't want to have those battles in my personal life. I don't think most people do, and now they've brought it right to my house. And I don't want to whine. I'm not a victim. I'm a happy person, but you can see why I wouldn't like that and why I'd feel threatened by it and why I think that this is a threat to free expression to all of us, and I mean that.
I agree, and also we should, according to the story, the reports, your brother's address is up there too, right?
Oh, they put my brother's address up. They put my college roommate's address up, my best friend who lives down the street from me, who I started the Daily Caller with, who, like my brother, has nothing to do with any of this. And they put both of their home addresses up. My college roommate was on a trip. His wife is home with their little kids, and he's got to get the police over there. My brother has a family, too. I mean, the whole thing is completely crazy. And I should say, just for the record, that I would guess that the overwhelming majority of my neighbors are Democrats, probably don't agree with a single thing I think, but all of them were appalled by this. I mean, we lose sight again of the fact that the country is overwhelmingly normal people who don't think that this is acceptable. And our conversation publicly has been hijacked by extremists like this, and I worry that if we don't stand up to them and say, I'm sorry, this is not allowed. You can't threaten people into silence. The rest of us are very passive in the face of this. I think we know who these people are. In fact, I think one of the people screaming at my wife last night has been a guest on our show. So these are semi-public people, yes. And I can't prove that. We're going to find out. But I'm thinking to myself, two things. If you have something to say, you're always welcome to come back on and say it. Again, he doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to convince you. He wants to scare you into shutting up. But second, why are the rest of us sitting back and allowing speech to be squelched like this? I mean, nobody is for this, really, other than a tiny minority of people, and yet they have control. How did we get here?
Because they got away with it. And I'm going to add this, Tucker. So you hear Antifa, you know, we cover this every single day. You saw the bike racks being thrown. You saw the bricks being put through Starbucks windows. These people, they yell, they scream, and they're violent. So that's got to really weigh in your mind. You know, we've seen them in action before.
Well, they're absolutely violent. I mean, you know, I don't want to pretend to be the tough guy. I'm not a tough guy, but I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not personally, I don't feel threatened physically, but, you know, I have 5 other people in my house,
Yep.
and maybe they do. And that's the point. So if I'm walking down the street and someone comes up and says, you know, I violently disagree with you, okay, you know, let me hear about it. But to do this is a form of intimidation. So
Right.
Why are we describing it as a protest? It's a protest in the sense that when the mafia tells a store owner, you know, I'd hate to have this place destroyed. That's not a protest. It's a threat.
Exactly.
And that's what this is.
Hey, Tucker, you're supposed to be on vacation. I appreciate you joining us. If anybody wants to know if Tucker's going to be intimidated, watch his A block. That's the beginning of the show when he comes back. I have a hunch